their 20s to marry and have children quickly. Well, how prudent is that? We will bring an economist to discuss that on the show this morning. Also on the show, Nvidia results have impressed Wall Street, and there seems to be a likelihood of a cascading effect here on Indian markets as well. Remember, Indian markets inched up higher yesterday. So can we finally expect the bullish momentum to be back in Indian stock markets? And finally, after months of dilly-dallying, US President Donald Trump has signed the release of Epstein files. We'll bring you that and more on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you all the headlines that we're tracking for you this Thursday morning. Zoho founder Sridhar Vembu sparks debate after urging youngsters to marry and have children in their 20s as part of what he calls their demographic duty. Prime Minister Modi to attend the G20 Summit in Johannesburg and outline India's views on global growth during key sessions and bilateral engagements. Meanwhile, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal to lead a 60-member delegation to Israel for high-level meetings and expanded cooperation across trade, technology, innovation and proposed India-Israel free trade agreement. Russia offers unrestricted Su-57 stealth fighter technology transfer to India as Moscow reaffirms long-standing defense ties ahead of Putin's December visit. Adani Group Chairman Gautam Adani's shorter payout plan wins creditor backing over Vedanta's higher bid in the 55,000 crore rupee Jaiprakash Associates insolvency case. Staying with the real estate sector, UP government unveils unified circle rate system to simplify property valuation, boost transparency and strengthen home buyers' bargaining power. Grow parent Billion Brains Garage Ventures hits the 10% lower circuit yesterday after a sharp post-listing rally as market cap slips from 1.17 lakh crore to now just at 1.04 lakh crore rupees. Gold surges yet again 1,500 rupees up to 1,27,300 rupees per 10 grams in Delhi. Silver rises 4,000 rupees per kg as international rates climb and safe haven demand strengthens. And a new Aadhaar app to enable paperless identity sharing, selective offline verification, enhanced security features and family Aadhaar management while discouraging physical card use. Well, our top story this morning, Zoho co-founder Sridhar Vembu has reignited a national debate with his comments urging youngsters to marry and have children in their 20s, calling it their demographic duty to society and ancestors. In a post on X, Vembu said he advises young entrepreneurs not to postpone marriage and parenthood, adding that while the idea may sound old-fashioned, it will resonate again. His response came after entrepreneur and Apollo Group scion Upasana Konidela shared her interaction with IIT Hyderabad students, noting a shift in attitudes towards marriage, with more men than women raising their hands when asked who wanted to marry. Konidela said that young women today seem more career-focused, calling it a sign of new progressive India. But Vembu's remarks triggered strong pushback online. Many argued that it's not cultural hesitation, but economic stress, unstable incomes, high living costs, and demanding work schedules that make early marriage unrealistic. Vembu countered that even those who can afford it are delaying marriage, insisting the issue is cultural. He added that life is not a race, saying people have time to rebuild and excel even after setbacks. Well, let's understand the economics of this. Mithali Nikore, founder and chief economist at Nikore Associates, joins me this morning. Good morning, Mithali. Pleasure having you back here with us. Now, Zoho founder Sridhar Vembu's comments coming at a time when jobs seem to be difficult to come by, and Gen Z very hesitant to go for long-term arrangements called marriage because they don't know how short-term their careers are.
So first of all, Karthik, good morning. And I think, let's unpack this entire series of comments a little bit, even from a gender lens, because I think that's a very critical one. When the Zoho founder speaks about marry and have kids in your 20s, it's almost like he sees that the lifetime of caring for children will then end in a person's 20s, and they would not have to actually care for their children into their 30s. But that's not true. When you have a child, it becomes the responsibility primarily of the mother to take care of the child throughout the child's lifetime. That's a 20-year commitment at a minimum till the child turns 18. And if you look at the Indian society, even when you look at, say, I'm not saying don't even look at rural areas. Let's look at urban areas, urban, affluent households and families. Mothers are spending an inordinate amount of time looking after their children's educational outcomes, looking after their health outcomes, looking after the family. And if you look at the data from the Government of India's Time Use Survey, which came out in 2024, there's absolutely been no reduction in women's care work. Women are still doing about 5 to 6 hours of care work every day, unpaid, and men do only 30 minutes.
Right.
So, when Vembu gives this advice, the advice that should also follow this advice is for men to take a charge of the care work and the unpaid care work that's happening in their households.
Absolutely. So I agree with you. I think data definitely edges in favor of men rather than women when it comes to getting away from these household duties of marriage as well as raising children. But there's also something interesting that Vembu mentioned in his tweet, and that is a demographic duty. I mean, seriously, do you think Gen Z today has time to think about their demographic duty to a country where we are in any case the most populous country on the planet, and quality of life is something which is eluding pretty much everybody no matter what age they belong to?
Absolutely, Karthik. I mean, look at the state of our cities. I mean, at the end of the day, for any young person, whether they are, residing in a rural area or if they are in a tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 city, they always aspire to come to a tier 1, 2, 3 city. And in any of these cities, whether it's a tier 1 city like Delhi or Mumbai or, any of the tier 2 or 3 cities, we find that the urban infrastructure has not kept pace with the kind of migration that the cities are seeing. We're not seeing jobs being generated at that same rate. And people, who should be, for example, as Vembu says, innovating and doing more work in agriculture, are also finding it hard to innovate and set up agri-businesses, even though that can be the future of India.
Absolutely, Mithali. And I also want to touch upon the Gen Z perspective here, because it seems that it's obviously, the economic uncertainty, the job market being soft. These are issues that Gen Z is grappling with. But at the same time, it's not just Gen Z, even those who are older. And that's something you and I discussed yesterday. The conversation is not restricted to Gen Z. Many in their 30s, even beyond, are deciding not to get married and not to have children because you may be able to fend for yourself. Are you comfortable enough, given the economic situation, given the global headwinds, that you'll be able to sustain a family?
So let's break this down also, Karthik, because there are so many issues you touched upon. So starting with the Gen Z perspective, I work with a lot of Gen Zs. Our team at Nicole Associates is 100% Gen Z. And what we find is that, they have a lot of anxiety about the future. They have a lot of anxiety about job stability. They have a lot of anxiety about their income streams, about how do they save, because their saving rates are actually quite low. And the simple fact is that, children who are coming into the workforce, I mean, when I say children, I mean the Gen Zs, when they're coming into the workforce now, they want to save to build up families, to buy homes, to buy, to have that stability in their life financially before they take responsibility for having a child. So again, when, Vembu provides this advice, it's almost like saying, if they have children in their 20s, then the financial responsibility of that would be on the grandparents.
Yeah.
and then he's presuming that they come from that economic background where, grandparents are able to take responsibility for two generations, not only for one generation, as
Absolutely.
well as for their own old age, which is a lot of financial, capital for any one family to have. And then there is the perspective of, the millennials and people in their 30s, and even many people in their 30s choosing not to get married or have kids, because several millennials now in the age of AI are seeing that their jobs are getting automated. They have to reskill, they have to, move to entrepreneurship to sort of take their careers ahead. And all of this requires a lot of financial capital as well. And you may use your savings just for, say, spurring your career or your business, and then not be able to afford to have kids. And the last point I'll make, Karthik, is really around the cost of raising children themselves in urban India. Again, I'm not speaking about rural or other areas, but literally in urban affluent neighborhoods, I have seen families paying up to 10 lakhs, 12 lakhs just for an annual school fees. I mean, just think about how those numbers have gone up. The financial burden of having a child is also increased considerably in certain pockets of the country.
Right. So that's the economics of it, and I cannot disagree with you. In fact, on a single point, Mithali, I come from exactly the same conundrum and the same school of thought, but there's also a cultural shift specific to Gen Z. Today's generation wants to travel. Today's generation wants to explore the world. Today's generation wants to eat at the best restaurants and post pictures online and build their following on Instagram and other social platforms. Marriage may not be priority. So is this genuinely a cultural shift which Vembu is also referring to?
So I think, Karthik, what we are seeing is not as much of a cultural shift, but much more of a impact of women's labor force participation and women's participation in the economy. And we've seen this in many other countries where the labor force participation rate for women increased, from its mid-20s to the mid-40s, as we're seeing in India today. I mean, in 2017, women's labor force participation in India was 23%. Today, it's 41%. Yes, I'll grant that the urban labor force participation rate still hasn't increased so much, but it's the highest it's been since independence at this point in time. So we're seeing a record number of women entering the labor force, and they don't want to bear this care burden on their own. They don't want to be, told that, oh, you have to marry this person, then you have to spend your entire life serving him, serving his family, serving their needs. It's also about your own life and your own needs. And what we find, even what you're mentioning on social media amongst Gen Z is also driven, considerably by women. Even amongst creators, there's a huge number of women coming in on Instagram, and we're seeing that, they are the influencers, the beauty influencers, and that's actually becoming a great career path for a lot of women in tier 2, tier 3 cities as well.
All right. And just for one moment, let's cut Sridhar Vembu some slack and really look at objectively his advice. If children, or rather if Gen Z were not to have children in their 20s, then body cycles change, body clocks change, and it becomes more and more difficult to have children in 30s and any time beyond that. Is there a larger risk to India's demographic dividend if Gen Z decides not to marry and not to have children?
So, Karthik, actually, I've been part of a lot of conversations amongst, those who feel that India's population might, growth might slow down to an extent that it goes below the replacement rate. And to each of them, I say the same thing, that if you really want to encourage young people to have children, and in India, marriage is not that much of an issue. We're still seeing, marriage rates which are close to 95% or above in most communities. So people do get married. Marriage is a cultural phenomenon that still attracts a lot of people. I think the one thing that really needs to change is our investment in the care economy. We really need to invest in setting up childcare facilities, in setting up elder care facilities, in setting up community care centers where elderly persons and children can, interact together and build a very thriving social fabric for the country. Because as we become more urban, these systems of childcare, which were so natural in rural areas and so part of Indian culture, they definitely are, breaking down a bit. And we can encourage that. We can continue, taking our Indian culture forward, have family friendly infrastructure and services through investment in the care economy. That's
Absolutely.
the only way that we can take this forward.
And add to that better quality public schooling, affordable public schooling, which centers as well as state must take responsibility of. But let's leave it at that for today. Mithali Nakore, always a pleasure for you to share these perspectives with us, with our audience, and for us to have you here with us. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And moving on to other stories now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Johannesburg, South Africa from November 21st to 23rd to attend the 20th G20 Leaders Summit, marking the 4th consecutive G20 Summit hosted in the Global South. Now, at the summit, the Prime Minister will present India's perspectives across all three key sessions. The first session will focus on inclusive and sustainable economic growth, touching on trade, development, financing and global debt challenges. The second session will look at building a more resilient world, addressing disaster risks, climate change, energy transitions and strengthening food systems. The final session will shift to shaping a fair and just future with discussions on critical minerals, decent work and the growing role of artificial intelligence. On the sidelines, Prime Minister Modi is expected to hold bilateral meetings with several world leaders and will also take part in the India-Brazil-South Africa leaders meeting being hosted by South Africa. And Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal will leave for Israel today at the invitation of Israel's Economy and Industry Minister Nir Barkat. He will be accompanied by a 60-member business delegation representing major Indian industry bodies, reflecting the growing economic partnership between the two nations. The ministry said the visit highlights the deepening strategic and economic engagement between India and Israel, with a strong focus on trade, technology, innovation and investment. During his visit, Goyal will hold high-level bilateral meetings with senior Israeli leaders, including Minister Barkat. Talks are expected to center on boosting trade and investment and cooperation in sectors such as agriculture, water, defense, emerging technologies, life sciences, infrastructure and advanced manufacturing, along with expanding opportunities for startups. The two ministers will also review progress on the proposed India-Israel Free Trade Agreement. Goyal will additionally participate in the India-Israel Business Forum and the high-level CEOs Forum too. Meanwhile, Russia has offered to transfer technology for its fifth-generation Su-57 stealth fighter jets to India, asserting that New Delhi would face no restrictions on its requirements. The offer was confirmed by Rostec CEO Sergei Chemezov, speaking on the sidelines of the Dubai Air Show 2025. Now, Chemezov highlighted the long-standing defense partnership between India and Russia, recalling that Moscow continued supplying weapons even when India was under sanctions, and said Russia remains committed to meeting India's security needs. The offer also comes at a time of increased high-level engagement, including recent meetings between External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and President Vladimir Putin ahead of Putin's visit to India in the first week of December. Chemezov said Russia is open to any new requests from India, whether for additional S-400 systems or the advanced Su-57, reaffirming that Moscow stands ready to support whatever New Delhi requires. Listen in.
The Russian side, represented by Rosoboronexport and USC, is offering to India supply of Su-57 fighter produced in Russia, with subsequent organization of production of the aircraft in India and technology transfer. Hence, we are offering technological learning of field generation technologies, including engines, optics, AESA radar, AI elements, low signature technologies, and modern air weapons.
And we will slip into a very short break, but coming up on the other side, can we expect a bullish sentiment on the Lal Street this morning? Rohit Srivastava will be joining us. Markets have only just opened. We'll bring you all the updates on the other side of the break.
में इतना कॉन्फिडेंस, इसीलिए बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
जी, आपने भारत कनेक्ट का नाम सुना है?
शादी वादी कराना है क्या?
शादी नहीं, 5 लाख एजेंट्स की मदद से बिल पेमेंट्स पॉसिबल बनाते हैं।
ओ,
जैसे अभी किया।
शाबाश।
आप हमें जानते नहीं पर मानते जरूर हैं। हम हैं भारत कनेक्ट।
What is speed? Do you ever see it? Or is it something you feel? Speed, it's relative. The more you speed up, the more the world slows down. And when you are fast enough, everything becomes still. That's when you see the world as it truly is. Servo Hypersport F5, when speed is your default.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's get straight into all the action from the Lal Street. But before that, a quick look at how Wall Street performed. Well, Wall Street was pretty much mixed yesterday with the S&P 500 closing flat, but the Nasdaq had seen some rally, and this rally coming on account of Nvidia's Q3 earnings and projected better than Q3 forecast for Q4. So the big tech had pretty much mixed signals, with Nvidia up almost 3%, Google up sharply 3%, while the other big tech stocks, the Magnificent Seven comprising Meta, Microsoft and Tesla, in the red yesterday as markets closed early hours for India. Meanwhile, the cascading effect on India has also been fairly pronounced. The overall sentiment that we saw yesterday has been in favor of India today as well. In fact, the markets have opened just a few minutes back, and Sensex and Nifty are holding on to excellent levels. In fact, Nifty 50 is at the 26,100 odd levels. Remember, it crossed the 26,000 levels yesterday. It's at 26,100, while Sensex is also squarely above the 85,350 levels at about 84,359 right now. 85,000, I beg your pardon, 359 as we speak right now. Meanwhile, there's also news coming in from Reliance, and Reliance Industries is up this morning about 1% higher, and this comes on account of its foray into the pet care system, while the IT stocks are a little muted today. Remember, IT stocks were the ones that had driven Sensex and Nifty, along with the BFSI sector, beyond the levels of 85,000 and 26,000 respectively on Sensex and Nifty. Rohit Srivastav joins us this morning, founder and market strategist, IndiaCharts.com, to give us an understanding of what to expect from here on, because the levels are holding up well. Nifty 50 is inching towards the 26,100 mark. Sensex above the 85,360 levels. Pretty much now it seems that we are potentially in the bull momentum once again. Rohit, take it away for us, please.
Yeah, so it's an interesting 4-5 day consolidation, and I think this has happened at a time when US has seen significant volatility. In other words, we've sort of ended up absorbing a lot of the negative behavior of global markets and then are trending higher. This is very similar to what we saw in the first week of October also, and now we are seeing that now late in November, and the eventual result was a much higher market. So I think that's what is likely to happen going forward. We are looking at a level of around 26,800 to be achieved next in the coming weeks, with support being close to around 25,800. So that's the risk reward for the Nifty. Simultaneously, we can even look at the Bank Nifty, which has been trading higher. A little slower, but it's already at an all-time high sooner than the Nifty itself, support being closer to around 58,200, and with the potential of it going towards 60,200 to 61,000 in the coming weeks.
All right. And how much of a cascading effect do you see of what's happening globally, especially on Wall Street with Nvidia's results? And how's that going to play out? Because we are seeing that obviously the overall global tailwinds seem to be there now as far as money coming into capital market goes. But what does this mean for, let's say, India's IT sector, and what does it mean for overall market sentiment?
So, well, the Indian IT sector and what's happening in AI already disconnected. I think Indian IT sector is facing its own headwinds. What the good news can be is that when you get an IT recovery in the US, you can see a short-term rally in domestic IT stocks. So,
is that what we saw yesterday? Is that what we saw yesterday, Rohit? There was a short rally, but this morning again the signals are fairly mixed on Indian IT.
Yeah, so maybe some anticipation because everybody was looking at the Nvidia results coming out. Now they have not only been good, they also have a even more positive guidance going forward. So that's why you're seeing the Nasdaq futures up more than almost 1.7% higher. So that provides the positive momentum. But what I'm saying is that Indian IT is actually not so connected to the AI trade. And it only gets a sentimental push up, So I've been repeating this, I think, every time that as a long-term investor, I'd probably not buy IT stocks. There may only be a short-term trade in it because they've fallen too much, and therefore any little buying can, cause prices to come higher. So there's a trade, but as an investment, I would still avoid the sector. There are many other better places to be in this market. From a growth perspective.
That's right. You were also talking about Bank Nifty. We are looking at the Nifty 50 BFSI index right now. And again, I mean, while overall the sentiment on Bank Nifty has been very positive, it's nearing lifetime highs, etc. But overall, what is driving the interest right now in banking stocks?
So it's a turnaround in the credit cycle that has slowly started to happen. It would further accelerate once India also moves towards much anticipated interest rate cuts. And there's already been growth. So you see in this market, if people were looking a year back, were looking for stocks which had lower valuations versus higher valuations, that was the concern in Jan of 2025. The sector that made it up was essentially banking, where you were still growing earnings at 15-20%. And valuations had fallen to almost a decade low. So that gave us a very good trading starting point in terms of valuations. And now because growth has continued and it is accelerating in other segments like NBFCs, PSU banks, and you're actually seeing those parts do much better. And even the second line private banks which are really doing well now.
Okay.
So I think that's where the attention is going. The earnings growth is still there. And valuations are very low, so that's the attractiveness.
All right. And you mentioned the credit cycle and potential rate cut in the first week of December. If these were to sort of go in tandem, if we see a rate cut and if we see a revival of the credit cycle, then do you think stocks of, let's say, the aluminium, steel, cement sector, etc., are those likely to also see some sort of a run-up if the credit cycle eases up? Are we going to see more capex investments and hence a little more push for these stocks?
Yes, absolutely. I think the rate cycle impacts us in two different ways. One is, when the dollar falls, you get the commodity cycle, which is commodity prices start going up. And we're already seeing that a little more broad-based than before. Earlier, it was like only copper picking up. Now, in the last 2 months, we've seen aluminium and zinc prices also picking up. And more recently, in the last 1 week, I'm actually seeing steel prices finally showing a bottom and maybe turning around. So, that's the commodity cycle play. And other part, you're right, that as the capex goes on, demand domestically remains strong. And a weaker currency that we've had also somewhere helps the commodity pricing. So multiple different reasons why Indian metal stocks have actually done better than global metal stocks during the last year, and possibly will do even better as the cycle picks up. So they definitely remain a pick, especially in an interest rate cycle. But we should not leave aside other interest rate sensitives as well, which includes the auto sector, apart from financials.
Absolutely. So let's also talk about the auto sector briefly. And given that numbers have been fairly robust for Q2 and now Q3 is when the real impact of the GST discounting is going to be visible. Is this the time to actually go big on and go long on auto stocks and buy on dips? Is that the right strategy to venture into auto stocks at this moment?
I think so. They've already moved, not to say they haven't performed, because from the March low, the auto index, which was at around 19,800, is currently at 27,000. But I don't think it's done, probably heads towards around 31,000, 32,000. So maybe another 10-12% upside on the auto index from current levels is what I'll be looking for. So yes, the auto sector does remain a good investment place given the rate cycle and the demand uptick that we are seeing because of that.
Okay. We can't let you go without talking about tariffs and India's trade deal with the US, which has been all elusive. Now, remember, right from the time that President Donald Trump took office on the 20th of Jan, the discussions and the sort of consensus was around getting a trade deal stitched by fall of 2025. We are already in fall of 2025, pretty much entering winter territory now. What have markets priced in right now? Are we still looking at just a 25% discount over the 50% tariff that we have? Or is there going to be, is the trade deal likely, as for the market players' perspective, is the trade deal likely to give far more benefits than what is being priced in right now?
It looks like there would be more benefits. There's hopes coming in that the rate might end up moving lower from 25% to 15% given the concessions that India is willing to give. We've already seen the talk move from that we will decide on our own oil to a gas deal being announced. So there slowly you're getting these trickling in news flows that are showing that we are paving way for the deal eventually. Maybe it's possible that some of the more difficult decisions might get announced outside the deal, just like we saw on the gas side, so that when the actual deal comes in, we don't really pick too much negatives out of it, which is always a risk that, have you given up too much, to get your leeway. But there has to be some kind of give and take for this to really go through, and I think they've probably worked around it. So we should look forward to one announcement at a time, and then maybe the final thing. The timing has been difficult. I think the main reason the index has not crossed the all-time highs is essentially because the market is waiting for that deal. So that's the main thing keeping it back.
Absolutely. Market is waiting for that deal. Meanwhile, I want to shift focus to the IPO season, which we just saw, and a pretty stellar one at that. But then there's been some sort of a sharp correction, especially when it comes to shares of Billion Brains Garage Ventures, the parent of Grow. Now, Rohit, remember, the stock had listed well higher than its 100 rupees subscription price. And over a span of just about 6 or 7 trading days, it had hit a 90% premium range. And today, in fact, yesterday we saw that the stock had taken a beating of about 10%. It hit the lower circuit, and then even this morning, as markets have just about opened, we are seeing another sharp dip coming, and it looks like it is heading into lower circuit territory again this morning. What's really happening? Can you sort of help unpack this for our investors who possibly participated in the IPO or invested into the stock a little later? Because a massive rally and then these sharp corrections, is there something at play here, or is it just simple profit booking as you see it?
Yeah, see, with newly listed stocks, that is a case, and especially when we are, looking at charts, we usually want to wait 3 months, 6 months before we do any analysis on any price action because you don't have enough data. The typical trend with most IPOs is that they get listed, then there is a sell-off, then there is a fair price, and then you get actual, recognition of what the fair value of the stock is going to be. That's what we have seen in most of the digital companies, at least. Now, this would also be in the digital space, but it's also in exchange. So you end up comparing it with what is happening on a BSE or an MCX, and the trends there still, continue to be pretty strong. The more the market picks up, that volumes and business actually expands for brokers pretty much exponentially with a rising market. And so that's why I think the 1 year, 2 year outlook would still remain positive. Also, there's going to be this sentimental thing around the NSE IPO. So as long as, till the point that NSE really lists, sentiment towards most brokerages listed and otherwise is going to be on the positive side.
So is it still some sort of price discovery which is going on? One really doesn't know where the equilibrium is. There was this rush to buy the stock because it listed at such premium, but now people are partly profit taking and partly just waiting and watching to see where the story goes from here.
Always true, because there's this entire crowd that does the IPO trade, right? Buy the IPO and sell on listing. So that crowd will definitely try to get out, and that's why you give it some time to achieve fair value, and then it normalizes from there.
All right, Rohit Srivastava, let's leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time this morning. As always, a pleasure having you here with us on News 9. And moving on now, gold prices surged by 1,500 rupees yet again to touch 1,27,300 rupees per 10 grams in Delhi on Wednesday, driven by strong gains in international rates. This according to the All India Sarafa Association. The 99.5% purity gold jumped to 1,26,700 rupees per 10 grams inclusive of all taxes. Silver also rebounded sharply, climbing 4,000 rupees to 1,60,000 rupees per kilogram, ending a 3-day losing streak in the local market. Now, analysts say renewed safe haven demand and weaker than expected US labor market data kept hopes for a potential rate cut alive. Globally, spot gold rose 1.14% to $4,114 per ounce, while spot silver gained 3.1% to $52.26 per ounce. Investors are closely watching the upcoming FOMC minutes and other macroeconomic releases amid mixed cues from Federal Reserve officials on inflation and employment trends. In other corporate news, Adani Group Chairman Gautam Adani has inched ahead in the race for Jaiprakash Associates, with creditors favouring its offer over Vedanta's higher 17,000 crore rupee bid. Now, according to officials, the deciding factor was Adani's larger upfront payment and a far shorter payout timeline of 1.5 to 2 years compared to Vedanta's proposed 5-year schedule. Creditors have already voted in favour of Adani, and the Committee of Creditors is expected to formally endorse this outcome before submitting the final plan to the NCLT. Besides Adani and Vedanta, bidders included Dalmia Bharat, Jindal Power and PNC Infratech, while controlling shareholder Manoj Kaur submitted and later withdrew a last-minute offer. Jaiprakash Associates, once a major infrastructure powerhouse, owes lenders 55,000 crore rupees, making this one of India's largest ongoing bankruptcy proceedings. And staying with the real estate sector right here in Uttar Pradesh, where the JP projects are mostly housed, the Uttar Pradesh government has announced a major reform to standardize circle rates across all districts, aiming to make property valuation and stamp duty calculation far more transparent and easier for buyers. Minister of State for Stamps and Registration Ravindra Jaiswal unveiled the new system in Lucknow, replacing the old district-specific format with a single unified structure. According to reports, circle rates earlier fell under 14 different categories, interpreted differently in each district. The new model introduces 15 uniform categories, which every district must now follow. To support this change, the department is developing new software that will allow citizens to enter land details and calculate property values for home. With circle rates now closer to actual market prices, experts say home buyers will gain stronger bargaining power and face less pressure to make cash payments, helping bring greater transparency to real estate transactions across the state of Uttar Pradesh. Time for a short break, but before that, all the global headlines that we're following for you this Thursday morning. US President Donald Trump signs legislation compelling the release of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's government records, a move that could expose new details about Epstein's network and ties to powerful government figures, including Donald Trump himself. And he's at it again. Donald Trump says he would love to fire US Fed Chair Jerome Powell, accusing him of dragging his feet on rate cuts as the White House pushes for cheaper borrowing to fuel growth. Days after branding New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani a communist, Donald Trump says he will host the 34-year-old at the White House on Friday, a dramatic shift following one of the most contentious local races in years. United States approves shipments of high-end AI processors to Gulf-backed firms Humane and G42, aligning with Saudi and Emirati plans to build major AI hubs in the region. At the US-Saudi Investment Forum, Tesla's Elon Musk and Nvidia's Jensen Huang confirmed plans for a 500-megawatt data center in the Saudi kingdom, with Nvidia also helping Riyadh build supercomputers to simulate quantum systems. And Nvidia beats all Wall Street expectations with a strong fourth-quarter revenue outlook, signaling relentless global appetite for its processors despite market fears of an overheating AI boom. Reports say Washington privately pressed Ukraine to accept a proposal that would involve giving up territory and some weapons to end the long-standing war with Russia. The European Union unveiled sweeping proposals to loosen compliance burdens on AI firms, aligning closer with Trump-era US policy and sparking protests from activists warning Europe is caving to Silicon Valley pressure. And a new Oxfam report says the ultra-rich in major world economies gain more than enough wealth in 12 months to lift every person in global poverty, triggering debates for tougher taxation on extreme wealth. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया। गजब का है दिन, सोचो जरा।
Can you give us some examples of, say, frugal marketing that you did, in the first days of Zomato?
So in Zomato also the product had pull. There was a hook. It had all the menu cards, and that was drawing traffic. It was the only restaurant site with all the menu cards. And typically good products that have a hook are built on deep customer insight. The customer insight for Naukri was that jobs are a traffic magnet. If you get all the jobs, traffic will come. You don't need to advertise. Likewise, Zomato, the insight was if you have all the menu cards, traffic will come. Especially if you're the only one with all the menu cards. Policy Bazaar, if you have a comparison engine which shows consumers the cheaper insurance policy, right, for the same features, traffic will come. You do all that, you get traffic, you get pull without advertising. Then you advertise to build on that.
लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए।
IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. Let's now shift focus to all the global stories that we're tracking for you. And as always, let's begin first with the United States. US President Donald Trump said late Wednesday that he has signed a bill forcing his own administration to release government records on the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The move could reveal new details about Epstein's activities and his connections with influential figures, including Donald Trump himself, before Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor. The case has dodged Donald Trump for months in past because he has repeatedly echoed conspiracy theories about Epstein's death. Many of his supporters believe the government concealed Epstein's links to politically powerful people and hid circumstances surrounding his 2019 jailhouse suicide while awaiting federal sex trafficking charges. And US President Donald Trump on Wednesday sharpened his attacks on Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, saying he would love to fire him for not cutting interest rates fast enough. Now, speaking at a Saudi-backed investment forum in Washington, Trump urged Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to speed up the search for Powell's replacement. Listen in.
Mortgage rates are down despite the Fed. Scott, you got to work in this guy. He's got some real mental problems. No, there's something wrong with him. He should be fine. Guy's grossly incompetent. And he should be sued for spending $4 billion to build a little building. You got to work at him, Scott. The only thing Scott's blowing it on is the Fed. Because the Fed, the rates are too high, Scott.
The U.S. Commerce Department has approved the export of advanced AI chips equivalent to nearly 35,000 Nvidia Blackwell units to two state-backed tech companies, Humane and G42 in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The decision comes as both nations push major AI infrastructure projects and coincides with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's first U.S. visit since 2018.
They're not creating fake opportunities to, please America, please President Trump. It's real opportunities. For example, when you ask about the AI and the chips, Saudi Arabia have a huge demand a huge need of computing power, and we're gonna spend in the short term around $50 billion by consuming those semiconductors for our needs in Saudi Arabia. And with the agreement that we're gonna have with North America, that will allow us to focus that consuming power in the short term by $50 billion from the South America, and long term with hundreds of billions of dollars in the long term.
At the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum on Wednesday, Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Nvidia's Jensen Huang confirmed plans for a massive 500-megawatt data center in Saudi Arabia. Huang added that Nvidia is also working with the kingdom to build supercomputers capable of simulating quantum machines.
So, yeah, we're doing XAI and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are doing a
Humane, 500 megawatts, starting with 50 megawatts phase one, and we're doing it with Nvidia.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Humane team, to Targ and team, such a fantastic job.
We're also working in Saudi Arabia to build supercomputers to simulate quantum computers and using our computers to be the controller and the error correction, quantum error correction, requires an enormous amount of computation, and so we're doing a lot of great work there too.
And one of those rare occasions where Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang is seen wearing a tie and a suit and ditching his iconic leather jacket. But let's stay with Nvidia, which on Wednesday projected the much-awaited fourth quarter revenue expectations above Wall Street expectations, riding relentless demands for its AI processors despite market worries about an overheating AI sector. More details in this Nvidia report.
Nvidia blew past Wall Street expectations after the closing bell on Wednesday, reporting stronger than expected quarterly profit and sales. It also issued an upbeat revenue forecast, betting on booming demand for its AI chips from cloud providers, despite growing concerns about an AI bubble. The report sent shares up 4% in after-hours trading, and it marks a defining moment for Wall Street. Global markets look to Nvidia, which is the world's most valuable company, to determine whether investing billions of dollars in AI infrastructure expansion has resulted in towering valuations that potentially outpace fundamentals. Ahead of the results, doubts had pushed Nvidia shares down nearly 8% in November, after a 1,200% surge in the past 3 years. CEO Jensen Huang said sales of its Blackwell chips are, quote, off the charts, and added, the AI ecosystem is scaling fast, with more new foundation model makers, more AI startups across more industries, and in more countries. AI is going everywhere, doing everything all at once. Big tech, among Nvidia's largest customers, has doubled down on spending to expand AI data centers and snatch the most advanced, pricey chips as it commits to multi-billion, multi-gigawatt build-outs.
Let's shift focus now to Europe. According to reports, the United States has privately signaled to Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky that Kyiv must accept a Washington-drafted framework to end the war with Russia, one that includes giving up own territory and some weapons. This as per sources familiar with the talks. More details in this next report.
The Trump administration has signaled to President Volodymyr Zelensky that Ukraine must give up land and surrender some weapons as part of a U.S.-drafted framework to end the war with Russia. That's according to two people familiar with the matter who requested not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the talks. The sources also said the proposals included cutting the size of Ukraine's armed forces, among other things. They added that the U.S. wants Ukraine to accept the main points of the framework. Such a plan would represent a major setback for Ukraine, as it faces further Russian territorial gains in the eastern part of the country, and with Zelensky tackling a corruption scandal in which Parliament dismissed the energy and justice ministers on Wednesday. A senior Ukrainian official earlier told Reuters that Kyiv had received signals about a set of U.S. proposals to end the war, and that Washington had discussed them with Russia. The source said Ukraine has had no role in preparing the proposals. Zelensky, who was holding talks in Turkey on Wednesday with President Tayyip Erdogan, is due to meet U.S. Army officials in Kyiv on Thursday. Andrew Danieri, Associate Director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center, who spoke with Reuters before details of these proposals came out, viewed the upcoming talks as a positive sign.
Having an American presence in Kyiv this week, I think, signals continued American engagement with the Ukrainians and hopefully a willingness to engage, listen, and work with the Ukrainians as the Americans try to facilitate a durable peace deal that they've been working on for many months unfortunately, without a ton of success, in large part because the Russian side doesn't actually want a real peace.
No face-to-face talks have taken place between Kyiv and Moscow since a meeting in Istanbul in July, and Russian forces have pressed on with Moscow's nearly 4-year-old war in Ukraine, killing 25 people in strikes overnight. Russian President Vladimir Putin has long demanded that Ukraine give up plans to join the U.S.-led NATO military alliance and withdraw its troops from 4 provinces Moscow claims as part of Russia. Moscow has given no indication that it has dropped any of those demands, and Ukraine says it will not accept them.
And Europe on Wednesday unveiled a new set of proposals to ease AI and privacy regulations, a move critics say hands an advantage to big tech and aligns with US President Donald Trump's push for lighter tech rules. Activists protested outside the European Commission headquarters in Brussels as these plans were released. Take a look.
Europe on Wednesday unveiled proposals to ease AI and privacy regulations. It's a move critics say will favour big tech and US President Donald Trump, with activists staging a demonstration outside the European Commission in Brussels as the plans came in. The digital omnibus proposed to delay the EU's stricter rules on AI use in some areas from August 2026 to December 2027. This includes use in biometric identification, road traffic applications, utilities supply, job applications and exams, health services, creditworthiness and law enforcement. Consent for pop-up cookies would also be simplified. This package will also streamline overlap laws like the GDPR, the AI Act, the e-Privacy Directive and the Data Act. EU Commissioner for Economy Valdis Dombrovskis said Europe could not afford to fall behind in a changing world.
So today's package of measures sends a clear message. Europe is willing and able to adapt to fully embrace the digital age and the AI technology that will drive productivity for future European growth.
A slew of tech giants have called for a revision of the AI rules to make things easier for business, and the proposed package changes would allow Alphabet's Google, Meta, OpenAI and others to use Europeans' personal data to train their AI models. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has regularly criticised EU regulations and said it was targeting US firms, charges which the Commission had rejected. Privacy activists from a group of 127 civil organisations called the proposals the biggest rollback of digital fundamental rights in EU history. Ava Lee from People vs Big Tech said the EU is at a crossroads.
We're calling on Ursula von der Leyen, backed by hundreds of thousands of Europeans, to do just that, to stop Europe from becoming the US's newest colony and to continue to uphold the rules that we have all fought for.
The proposals would need to be approved by EU countries and privacy-focused members of the European Parliament before they can be implemented.
And finally, from a massive spending push by global AI giants to a Molière-inspired theatrical experiment, we leave you with all the biggest AI stories of the week. Thank you so much for watching.
From multi-billion-dollar deals to plays written with AI, this is AI Weekly. Microsoft and Nvidia have made a mega deal with Claude maker Anthropic, featuring tens of billions of dollars of spending. It includes a $30 billion commitment by the AI company to Microsoft's cloud service Azure, and both Nvidia and Microsoft committing up to $10 billion and $5 billion in Anthropic, respectively. The agreement brings together major players in the AI industry, with Claude being a major rival to ChatGPT. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence startup, xAI, is in advanced talks to raise $15 billion in new equity at a valuation of $230 billion. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. The new valuation would more than double the amount disclosed in March. The startup has been rapidly scaling its data center footprint to train more advanced models as it tries to close the gap with OpenAI's ChatGPT and Anthropic's Claude. Bank of America is planning to spend $4 billion more in new technology, including AI, to boost bankers' productivity and drive revenue growth. The bank's chief technology officer says its 18,000 developers have used AI for the past year with significant gains in productivity. The second biggest US lender sends AI-generated market information to its financial advisors, combined with data on clients' portfolios, so that bankers can better tailor their investment advice. Nvidia's move to use smartphone-style memory chips in its AI servers could cause server memory prices to double by late 2026. That's according to a report published Wednesday by Counterpoint Research. Electronics supply chains worldwide have been hit by a shortage of legacy memory chips in the last 2 months. Manufacturers have turned their focus to high-end memory chips suited to semiconductors. Counterpoint says Nvidia's decision to reduce AI server power costs by changing the kind of memory chip it uses could create sudden demand that the industry is not prepared for. And scholars have teamed up with an AI collective in Paris to create a new play written in the style of the famous 17th century playwright Molière. Over the last 3 years, the team has trained the French-developed Mistral AI on Molière's works, personal library texts, and historical documents to replicate his language and humour. A production called The Astrologer, or The False Omens, is set to debut at the Château de Versailles in May 2026.
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News 9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News 9's pick of the week. Don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News 9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
Red Fort explosion. Let's get you all the updates. Following the blast, there is of course a South Indian connection of Dr. Shaheen Shahid. Because this is news of national import that search operations are underway across the entire Al Falah University campus. The blast killed 12 people. Prices, however, of Nandini ghee have been hiked. KMF has defended Nandini is the brand. I've been getting a lot of queries on my phone. What's for the people of Karnataka? Okay, you can play tennis as much as you want to, but I'm the umpire and I will say please. There is an eyeball to eyeball confrontation. Where is this going? What is the way out? The farmers, they can actually shake a nation. Both of you down because I can also shout Prashantji.
The GOAT or Bakra of satire is back. Cyrus Roja. From politics to pop culture, from your WhatsApp forwards to breaking news, nothing and no one is safe.
Relax, guys, relax. I only roast the truth, and the truth is always hilarious. Too much pressure.
Get ready for news caustic, bold, sharp, unfiltered, 100% Cyrus.
Being a chef, it's my priority to deliver taste in a plate with good presentation, unique innovation. You need to explore, you need to experiment.
You observe the people, make them happy, make them feel happy, and in the end you are smiling. That's the most important thing.